I want to welcome everyone to this organizational behavior course. In this course, we use the 17th edition of the textbook Organizational Behavior by Robbins and Judge. This is considered among the most widely used organizational behavior textbook in the world. Robbins and Judge are recognized as definitive aggregators of OB concepts, applications, and practices. The course in this book will provide you with a resource that will benefit you throughout your degree program and your professional life. In this PowerPoint, we are going to cover Chapter 1, which covers what is organizational behavior. Interpersonal skills are so important in the workplace. Managers need a cadre of skills to create a productive workplace, including technical and quantitative skills. However, leadership and communication skills are critical to organizational success. When managers have solid interpersonal skills, there are positive work outcomes for the organization. These outcomes include lower turnover of strong employees, improved recruitment pools for filling employment position, and a better bottom line. A manager is someone in the organization who gets things done through the efforts of other people. It is important to keep in mind that an organization is defined as a social entity comprised of two or more people and can be found at any level within the organization. The work of managers revolves around four functions: planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. When thinking about these functions, one realization comes forward: that they all involve the interpersonal skills of communication for their effective implementation. Henry Mintzberg looked at management differently when he defined the 10 roles of managers. As shown on the next slide, you will see that they again involve implementation through the interpersonal skills of communication. When reviewing the 10 roles that Henry Mintzberg defined, I want to note that they fall within three categories that are listed here on this slide. The first category is interpersonal roles. These are duties that are ceremonial and symbolic in nature. An example of this would be handing out diplomas at graduation. There are also informational roles. These are roles where you collect information from outside organizations, disseminate information internally, and you represent the organization to outsiders. And the final category that the 10 roles listed in the textbook fall into are decisional roles. These are roles that involve making choices. You must take corrective action to improve performance and to avoid problems. So what skills do managers need to effectively achieve their goals? Researchers have identified several skills that set successful managers apart from their less effective counterparts. These include technical skills, human skills, and conceptual skills. Technical skills are the ability to apply specialized knowledge or expertise. All jobs require some specialized expertise, and many people develop their technical skills on the job. Human skills are the ability to work with, understand, and motivate other people, both individually and in groups. And finally, conceptual skills. This is the mental ability to analyze and diagnose complex situations. I want you to also think about how the importance of these roles might vary depending on the position. For example, my previous job was in the food industry as a product developer. My CEO of that company did not need to have the technical ability to know how to formulate a bar. Instead, he probably needed more conceptual skills, which gave him the ability to see the big picture of the business as a whole. Human skills are important at every level because in every level that you work at in an organization, you are interacting with other people. Organizational behavior is a field of study that investigates the impact that individuals, groups, and structure have on behavior within the organization for the purpose of applying such knowledge towards improving an organization's effectiveness. More specifically, organizational behavior explores motivation, leader behavior and power, interpersonal communication, group structure and processes, attitude development and perception, change processes, conflict and negotiation, and work design. We are going to cover these topics throughout the next 6 weeks that we spend together. Many people say that the ideas and concepts of organizational behavior are common sense. However, the systematic study of organizational behavior has come closer to finding ways to predict the behavior of individuals and groups through an understanding of the situation and the composition of the people. Evidence-based management complements systematic study by basing managerial decisions on the best available scientific evidence. Intuition is a decision-making approach advocated by numerous managers. However, if we make all the decisions with intuition or gut instinct, we're likely working with incomplete information. Evidence-based management and the systematic study of behavior enhance the understanding of these internal contributors to organizational behavior. The recent availability of big data shows promise to the field of organizational behavior, potentially providing evidence that can be used to support intuition and experience. The use of big data for managerial practices is a relatively new area, but one that holds convincing promise. The reasons for data analytics include predicting any event, detecting how much risk is incurred at any time, and preventing catastrophes. New trends include the use of big data for understanding, helping, and managing people. There are also limitations to this. It uses evidence as much as possible to inform your intuition and experience. But human nature isn't easy to predict with any certainty, regardless of the method used. Organizational behavior is a behavioral social sciences that merges concepts from a number of different social sciences to apply specifically to the organizational setting at both the individual or micro level and the group or macro levels. The most significant social sciences are psychology, social psychology, sociology, and anthropology. Let's look at each on the next few slides. Psychology focuses on the individual level by seeking to measure, explain, and sometimes change behaviors in individuals. This area of study offers insights into such areas as learning, training, decision-making, and employee selection. Social psychology moves beyond individual analysis to look at group behavior and how individuals can influence one another. It blends together sociology and psychology and looks primarily at change, communication, and group interactions. Sociology looks at the relationship between people and their environment. Sociologists' main contribution to organizational behavior has been a better understanding of group behavior, particularly in formal and complex organizations. Another key area that sociologists contribute to in organizational behavior is organizational culture, which is a key factor in our studies. Anthropologists study societies to learn about human beings and their activities. They help us understand the differences between groups in terms of their values, attitudes, and behaviors. There are few absolutes in organizational behavior. When making decisions, you must always take into account the situational factors that can change the relationship between two variables. Every situation has the potential to have unseen factors or even known factors that can change rapidly. Opening your mind to detecting these changes and unseen factors and to being ready with optional responses is essential to effective management. Contingency variables are the situational factors. These are variables that moderate the relationship between the independent and dependent variable. For example, we often see both general and contingency effects on things. A general effect may say, money does have some ability to motivate most of us. But the contingency to that says, some of us are more motivated by money than others, and some situations are more about money than others. We best understand organizational behavior when we realize how both of these, the general effects and the contingencies that affect them, often guide behavior. During economic difficulties, the need for effective management is heightened. Anyone can manage during good times. It is much tougher to manage effectively through economic struggles. In bad economic times, resource constraints may force managers to make tough decisions, such as whether to lay off employees. It can also be difficult to motivate employees when resources are limited. Moreover, managers must be able to deal with employees who are stressed about their future. This represents one of the challenges that managers face. Managers also face the challenge of responding to globalization. Globalization means that organizations now exist in an environment with no national borders. As a result, the manager's job has changed. Managers today need to have a broader perspective when making decisions. As foreign assignments increase, you will need to be able to manage a workforce that is different than what you may be used to and what may bring different needs, aspirations, and attitudes to the workplace. You will also have individuals who come from different cultures coming to work in your own country. You will need to find ways to accommodate their needs and help them assimilate into your workplace culture. As more jobs move to countries with lower cost labor, managers will need to balance the needs of their organization with the needs of the countries in which they operate. Finally, in the new global village, managers need to understand the implications of differing cultural and legal practices on their operation. Violating local regulations and practices could have serious consequences for the organization. Another challenge is managing diversity. As the borders are disappearing, we are seeing more and more heterogeneity in the workplace. Managers today need to embrace the diversity and find ways to manage it effectively. The changing demographics have shifted management philosophy in a way that recognizes and utilizes differences to create productivity, profitability, and welcoming workplace cultures. Networked organizations are proliferating. These are organizations that are spread over geographic, time, and other boundaries, and that are connected by technology. Managing and leading people who never see each other but who work together requires a different set of management and leadership skills. Social media is a difficult issue for today's manager, presenting both a challenge and an opportunity for organizational behavior. It's important to have policies on accessing social media at work. This includes things such as when, where, and for what purpose is it okay. It's also important to realize the impact of social media on employee well-being. I want you to think about how much should HR look into a candidate's social media presence prior to hiring them. This is a hot topic in business today, and I encourage you to read more about it. Because of the increases in technology and because of the expansion of networked businesses to global competition, time is no longer a definable boundary of organizational activity and personnel responsibility. Managers and leaders of organizations are challenged to help employees find ways to balance work and life roles to ensure they remain effective and viable members of the team. Employees who feel as though they don't get a break and who believe they must work 24 hours a day can be less effective, suffering from burnout and dissatisfaction. I think often about how my email comes directly to my phone, and I have to be very cognizant to have some time where I don't look at my phone so that I don't feel like I always have to be responding to emails all of the time. The mental breaks are important. I want you to think about how this change in our technology has affected you and whether you think it's increased your stress or not. Increased scrutiny by society and governmental entities has increased businesses' concerns with ethical behavior. Lapses in ethical behavior have resulted in everything ranging from public sanctions against businesses to legal penalties against a firm and its managers. Ethical dilemmas require managers to make decisions involving right and wrong conduct. Managers and leaders must clearly define what constitutes appropriate ethical behavior by the organization and its people, and they must lead by example. They must also punish those who are breaking the ethics that have been stated for the company employees to follow. In this class, we are going to read this article, Driven to Suicide by an Inhumane and Unnatural Pressure to Sell. When reading this article and writing the assignment that relates to it, I want you to think about what factors led up to this situation, who is at fault, and what, if anything, could have been done differently. This book proposes three types of variables: inputs, processes, and outcomes, at three levels of analysis: individual, group, and organizational. The basic organizational model here proceeds from left to right, with inputs leading to processes and processes leading to outcomes. Notice that the model also shows that outcomes can influence inputs in the future. In this class, chapters 2 through 8, we will look at the individual items. In chapters 9 through 14, we will look at group behavior. And in chapters 15 through 18, we will look at the organizational system. Inputs are factors that exist in advance of the employment relationship. For example, individual diversity characteristics, personality, and values are shaped by a combination of an individual's genetic inheritance and childhood environment. Group structure, roles, and team responsibilities are typically assigned immediately before or after a group is formed. And finally, organizational structure and culture are usually the result of years of development and change as the organization adapts to its environment and builds up customs and norms. Processes are actions that individuals, groups, and organizations engage in as a result of the inputs and that lead to certain outcomes. At the individual level, processes include emotions and moods, motivation, perception, and decision making. At the group level, they include communication, leadership, power and politics, and conflict and negotiation. Finally, at the organizational level, processes include human resource management and change practices. Scholars have emphasized individual level outcomes like attitudes and satisfaction, task performance, citizenship behavior, and withdrawal behavior. At the group level, cohesion and functioning are the dependent variables. Finally, at the organizational level, we look at overall profitability and survival. Because these outcomes will be covered in all of the chapters, we'll briefly discuss each of them on the following slides so you can understand what the goal of organizational behavior will be. The belief that satisfied employees are more productive than dissatisfied employees has been a basic tenet among managers for years, though only now has research begun to support it. Some people might think that influencing employee attitudes and stress is purely soft stuff and not the business of serious managers. But as we will show, attitudes often have behavioral consequences that relate directly to organizational effectiveness. Task performance is the most important human output contributing to organizational effectiveness. So in every chapter, we devote considerable time to discussing how task performance is affected by specific topics. In today's dynamic workplace, where tasks are increasingly performed by teams and flexibility is critical, employees who engage in good citizenship behaviors help others on their team by volunteering for extra work, avoiding unnecessary conflicts, respecting the spirit as well as the letter of rules and regulations, and gracefully tolerating occasional work-related impositions and nuances. Employee withdrawal can have a very negative effect on an organization. The cost of employee turnover alone has been estimated to run into the thousands of dollars, even for entry-level positions. Absenteeism also costs organizations significant amounts of money and time every year. For instance, a recent survey found the average direct cost to U.S. employers of unscheduled absences is 8.7% of the payroll. When employees trust one another, seek common goals, and work together to achieve these common goals, the group is cohesive. Conversely, when employees are divided among themselves in terms of what they want to achieve and have little loyalty to one another, the group is not cohesive. The greater the group's cohesion, the greater the effect of group functioning that leads to effective outcomes and satisfying impacts on group members. Popular measures of organizational efficiency include return on investment, profit per dollar of sales, and output per hour of labor. Service organizations must include customer needs and requirements in assessing their effectiveness. These measures of productivity are affected by the behaviors of managers, employees, and supervisors. Increased productivity leads to the ultimate goal of most organizations, which is the survival of the firm. As you can see in this exhibit 1.6, we will deal with inputs, processes, and outcomes at all three levels of analysis, but we group the chapters as shown here to correspond with the typical ways that research has been done in these areas. This concludes Chapter 1. Please let me know if you have any questions.